Well, good morning. How's everybody doing? It is great, absolutely great to be back at the Space Symposium. And if you're like me, I know we have all felt the void last year when COVID forced the Space Foundation to cancel this event. You know, this Space Symposium, I've got a close lash up to it. It started in 1984, the same year that I entered active duty. At that time, there's just a few hundred people in attendance. Since then, it's grown immensely in importance to all sectors of the space enterprise. First, a big thank you to Tom Zellebor, the Space Foundation team, the Broadmoor Hotel, and the city of Colorado Springs for working so hard to bring us all together. Now, I say this every year that I have had the privilege of being on this stage. If you have to run an event, do it at the Broadmoor, because it's really hard to screw it up at a place like this. I'm also extremely honored, absolutely honored, to have our new Secretary of the Air Force here with us, Secretary Frank Kendall. You're going to hear from him later on this morning, and I'm going to have an opportunity to formally introduce him. But I will tell you, he says he's hit the ground running. I'll tell you, he's hit the ground at full sprint. National security expert, aerospace expert in the building, just a true leader, and we're lucky to have you, sir. Thanks for being here. You know, this event brings everybody together from all sectors of space: national security, civil, commercial, international. You have to develop strong partnerships to meet the challenges and seize on the many opportunities that space affords. This symposium plays a huge role in connecting the global space community, and I'm really grateful we didn't have to go another year without the opportunity to get together as a global enterprise. I want to spend my time with you this morning celebrating people, both guardians and our valued partners. Space is hard, but it's almost impossible without the partners that are represented here today. What an exciting time to be in the space business, with all sectors of space making huge, huge advances. Just look at the space domain since the last time we were together in 2019. So much has changed. If you were asleep and you woke up, you wouldn't even recognize it. Not only is our nation launching astronauts from U.S. soil again, we've seen 2 commercial companies send tourists to space as well, with a commercially orbital mission planned for next month. The U.S. and China each landed an additional probe on Mars. NASA is even flying helicopters on Mars. Investment in the commercial space sector continues to rocket upwards, driving a second golden age of space. If you think back to the last time we met at a Space Foundation, there was about 2,100 active satellites on orbit. Today, there's over 4,900. That's astounding. While we've all been wearing masks, the number of active satellites has doubled. And as you probably know, I have a new job. Actually, I've had 2 jobs since the last time we were together. We stood up U.S. Space Command, now under the command of General Jim Dickinson. Jim, you're here. Sir, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your leadership. And we stood up a U.S. Space Force, the United States Space Force, created in December of 2019. It's the first new military service in the United States since 1947, and the first in the world focused entirely on space power and what it can achieve both in the space domain and here on Earth. Our adversaries have been busy as well. Over the last several years, China and Russia have continued to build an entire spectrum of satellites for their own use and of threats. Both have reversible jammers, both have ground-based laser systems capable of blinding or damaging satellites. China has a satellite on orbit with a robotic arm that could be used to grab other satellites in the future. Both have ground-based missiles capable of destroying satellites on orbit. And Russia also has a nesting doll satellite that opens up, releases another satellite, which can release a projectile. Since we last met, Russia deliberately tested and actively maneuvered that weapon system near a U.S. government asset. I described how the Space Symposium brings people together to build partnerships, but it's also the place where we can have debate in public about the most important issues we face as a space community. In the past several space symposiums, the single biggest debate was about how best to organize the national security space sector to respond to the rapidly changing space domain and the growing threat that I just described. What hasn't been debated is the global importance of the space domain. We have long known that access to and freedom to maneuver in space are vital interests that underpin all instruments of our national power. Space fuels our way of life and our way of war. Our adversaries understand that and are developing weapons purpose-built to degrade our space capabilities. Many of you probably recall a speech from Congressman Mike Rogers. He gave it here in April of 2017, making the case for the reorganization of military space. At the beginning of that speech, he quoted Einstein, saying, "If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about it, and thinking about the problem, and about 5 minutes thinking about solutions." As a nation, we've spent decades thinking about this problem. During the last 20 months, we have not just been thinking about solutions, but we've been implementing them on our own and with our partners across the Department of Defense, the U.S. government, with industry, and especially our international partners. We established the United States Space Force as an independent armed service to elevate space to a level equal to its importance to our national security. This addressed several systemic challenges highlighted by Congressman Rogers in that speech that he gave here at the symposium. First one was fragmented decision-making. Second challenge was the lack of integration across national security space ecosystem, as was described last night. Insufficient funding and inadequate professional development. So I'll tell you a little bit about our solutions now, and along the way, I'm also going to introduce you to some military and civilian guardians who've been critical to the progress that we've made. Many of us have read the GAO report in 2016 that pointed out that DoD space acquisitions, management, and oversight were split across more than 60 organizations. But the key point wasn't the 60 organizations number. It was that too many people could say no, and very few people could say yes. We were not achieving unity of effort. Space is hard. We can't afford to make it harder with fragmented decision-making. Today, we have a single military service that is empowered with the same authorities as the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. And under the direction of the Department of the Air Force, we have built Space Force organizations and processes to take advantage of this. First, we need to identify a future force design underpinned by world-class analysis to balance performance, cost, and resilience. Here in Colorado Springs, we established the Space Warfighting Analysis Center, or SWAC, to do just that. Second, we are taking that force design and turning it into validated requirements. 2 years ago, no single organization could do that. Today, the Joint Requirements Oversight Council, or JROC, has directed that the Space Force will be the integrator of joint space requirements. This addresses not only fragmented decision-making, but also lack of integration across the department. Third, we need to align acquisition programs across the department with our partners in the intelligence community. The Space Force Acquisition Council is doing just that. Soon, the Department of the Air Force will have a separate service acquisition executive for space who will chair that council and reinforce unity of effort in acquisition. Lastly, we need to build and acquire these systems and then test them. Per the direction of the Secretary of the Air Force, we established Space Systems Command just 2 weeks ago. I don't want to steal too much thunder from Lieutenant General Mike Gutlein since he's speaking later today, but we're excited to have Mike in command of the Space Systems Command. We also designed and are building an integrated test enterprise to make sure that our systems are mission capable once they launch. So, is all this working? It's early, but we've already had some major success. The Space Warfighting Analysis Center's first assignment was to tackle one of our most important missions, missile warning, and to design the force structure we need for a contested space environment. I'm proud to say that their final results were supported by all organizations involved in that mission. It's not the SWAC's force design, it's not the Space Force's force design, it's the nation's force design. That's what unity of effort is all about. Space is hard, but it is a lot easier when we're all rowing in the same direction. I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the guardian who led the Space Warfighting Analysis Center team that delivered this missile warning force design. Major Amanda Salmoiraghi. Amanda, can you stand up? Thank you. Amanda and her team evaluated thousands of force design concepts, narrowing them down through rigorous technical and cost analysis. Her team worked hand in hand with the Missile Defense Agency, the intelligence community, and multiple acquisition organizations throughout the entire process. Thank you again, Amanda, and your entire teammates at the SWAC for your exceptional work. Since we just talked about the hard work going on to deliver the future resilient missile warning architecture, let's not forget the Space Force has not missed a beat on delivering on its missions today. And that's in almost the entire time that we've been up as a service under a global pandemic. Let me introduce you to Lieutenant Charles Chaz Bruce from Space Operations Command. Lieutenant Bruce, please stand. Thank you. He and his team operate our current missile warning satellites, the Space-Based Infrared Satellites, or SBIRS. In January of 2020, Lieutenant Bruce and his team optimized the Space-Based Infrared System payload coverage in preparation for an impending Iranian missile attack on U.S. forces. Successful warning allowed those troops to take shelter and hunker before the attack, and take shelter in bunkers before the attack. This resulted in no lives lost due to the diligence of Lieutenant Bruce and the entire SBIRS team. Lieutenant Bruce, we're thankful to have you on the team. Thank you for what you've done. Another area Congressman Rogers highlighted was that space funding wasn't getting the appropriate priority. For the last several years, the department has put its money where its mouth is. Every year since 2017, we've had increasing budgets. Space is a great deal for our nation. It is a huge force multiplier and represents just 2.5% of DoD's budget. We cannot afford to lose space. Another area Congressman Rogers highlighted in 2017 was professional development. We have revamped over the course of the last 18 months our personnel processes to recruit, train, and promote the best of the best. People are our most precious asset, and the Space Force is investing in building a cadre of military space professionals. In recruiting, we have far more applicants wanting to join the Space Force than we have slots to fill. We can be very selective and are handpicking only the top applicants. For example, we had 650 slots in the Space Force for the first two tranches of transfers from the Army, Navy, and the Marine Corps. Approximately 4,000 service members applied. That's a selection rate of less than 17%. On the civilian side, we had 9,100 civilians apply for an initial tranche of 70 positions on the headquarters Space Force staff. People are excited about what we're building in the Space Force, and they want in. Let me introduce you to one of our newest guardians, Second Lieutenant Aryemis Brown. Will you please stand? I had the privilege of attending the Air Force Academy graduation here just a few months ago. And Lieutenant Brown graduated in that class from the United States Air Force Academy this spring and commissioned into the Space Force directly. We had 118 cadets commissioned directly into the Space Force. But unfortunately, he's not quite ready to join our ranks yet, since he's going to spend a few years in the United Kingdom as a Rhodes Scholar. Lieutenant Brown, I'm excited to have you on our team and look forward to you coming back to the Space Force. You're going to be studying international relations, and I'll tell you, one of the big things that we're doing is working to strengthen the international partnerships that we have, and you're going to be a huge addition to our team. So congratulations, and thanks for being a Guardian. Once the best have joined our ranks, they get the best training throughout their career. In fact, Secretary Kendall recently directed, and just yesterday, we established the Space Training and Readiness Command, the STARCOM, whose focus is on the critical mission of educating and training Guardians. We've increased the number of space operators attending professional military education. As an example, in 2017, when Congressman Rogers gave the speech, only 3 space operators attended Air War College. Next year, that number is 24. A few years ago, mid-career officers in these courses only spent a small percentage of their time focusing on space. Today, we have Guardian-focused courses, the Shriver Scholars, and the West Space Seminar programs, where 40% of the curriculum is specifically targeted to understanding the theory, the doctrine, and the joint warfighting concepts of the space domain. We recruit top talent, they get the best training, and now the Space Force also runs our own promotion processes. From the day Guardians join the service until the day they leave, we can assure the right talent is rising through the ranks. In 2017, our promotion rates to lieutenant colonel and colonel were far below the Air Force average. That is not the case today. Across our nation, there is a future generation of Guardians who haven't joined our ranks yet. I'm confident we will recruit them, we will train them, we'll develop them, we'll promote them to be the military leaders we will need far into the future. Space is really hard, but the Guardians we are recruiting, training, and developing make it look easy, and it's not. Captain Joseph Dilcox, will you please stand up? Captain Dilcox has been instrumental. Captain Dilcox has been instrumental in building the best military space training anywhere in the world. He helped stand up 3 foundational space courses covering topics ranging from the physics of the space domain to space law to military space doctrine. He worked shoulder to shoulder with the Army and the Navy to ensure the training pipeline for wideband SATCOM operation centers continues to operate smoothly as those missions are transferred into the Space Force. Thank you, Captain Dilcox, for all your efforts for supporting our critical training mission. Well done. Above all, none of this progress would be possible on our own. Let me share a few thoughts on how critical partnerships are to space security. Let me start with the partnerships we're building close to home within the national security sector. Our relationship with the National Reconnaissance Office has never been stronger. The partnership touches everything that we do. We share people, we share operation centers, we launch systems together, we mutually invest and develop programs to deliver new capabilities. And while we have distinct missions, what unites us is that we both operate in the same domain. We recently co-signed a Protect and Defend agreement with U.S. Space Command as well that will align our efforts as we operate in a contested space environment. Dr. Scalise, you're here? Thank you. I appreciate your strong partnership that we have with you and all of the members of the NRO team. The Space Force also has a very strong relationship with the United States Space Command. As the newest combatant command and the newest military service within the Department of Defense, Space Command and the Space Force have a unique imperative to synchronize our efforts. It's been said that the fast go alone, but to go far, you go together. Well, we're doing just that, both going fast and far. And as I said earlier, I greatly appreciate the leadership of Jim Dickinson and the relationship of that our two organizations enjoy. We can't partner together if we can't talk to each other. I want to recognize a civilian guardian that is literally enabling that secure communication, Mr. John Duffy. John, could I ask you to stand? Thank you. Mr. Duffy works at headquarters of Space Operations Command. He has made a huge impact in overhauling and increasing the efficiency of their secure communications networks. This includes establishing communication lines to new mission partners across the government. This makes Space Operations Command a more integrated and more effective warfighting organization. Thank you, John, for your efforts and for all the work that you've done to help us integrate more effectively. Now let me move on to the civil sector and discuss our close partnership with NASA. I am so pleased to have the new NASA administrator here with us, the Honorable Bill Nelson. I knew then Senator Nelson when I was the Air Force Space Command commander, and sir, you've always been a great supporter of national security space. I will tell you, since the administrator has been back, and as the administrator of NASA, I think we have talked or met handfuls of times already. The Space Force and NASA have distinct missions, but we have shared interests.
NASA's a civil agency, but to be successful in our scientific and exploration missions throughout the cosmos, we need to be able to carry them out safely. And that's why NASA and the Space Force work together to address a number of challenges, because space is hard.
Sir, thank you. I appreciate the Space Force, appreciates the partnership that we enjoy. We share an industrial base. We share the need for awareness in the space domain. We share a commitment to mission success. We share people, and we share the desire for norms of behavior in the space domain. And again, I can't thank you enough for your strong leadership and partnership. You know, last year when I was on the stage, or 2 years ago, the last time we had a symposium, it was a really stressful event for me. I was giving a speech and I was introducing you to guardians, and the last guardian wasn't able to make it to the space symposium. And so he was TDY, if you recall, for those that were here. And the challenge was he was TDY to low Earth orbit on the International Space Station. And I had all these little cue cards and timing, and I had to sync up links to the space station to make sure that this would all get connected. And it was a really high risk-reward deal. It was either going to just bomb considerably, or it was going to be the best speech of the symposium. And I had this, again, all these cue cards telling me what to do and trying to time my speech right. And I finally got to the point, they said, go to the International Space Station, big cue card that was held up. And so I said, International Space Station, this is General Raymond from the symposium, how copy? And what seemed like a 10-hour time delay, which was only like probably 4 seconds, Colonel Nick Hague popped up on the screen. And after about another 4 seconds, we could actually hear him. I will tell you, it was the biggest relief of my life, and I have ever attempt to do that again. But it's a lot easier today, because Nick isn't TDY anymore. He's safely back on Earth. Nick, could you please stand up? So we brought Nick back, and once he landed and completed his post-mission requirements, we brought Nick back. He transferred over from the Air Force to the Space Force. He's got a test pilot school background, and we had Nick build that test program, design that test program, an integrated test program that will allow us to test our capabilities in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. He's done all that work, and I can't wait to send you back to NASA and get you back up on orbit, which I know is in your plans in the near future. I really appreciate all you've done. Since we're just talking about tests, can I get Specialist Roll to stand up? Specialist Roll with the Space Force. One of the things that Colonel Nick Hague helped us do was to build a space test fundamentals course, which we had never had, and integrate it in the Air Force's space test test pilot school, and we had our first class just graduated 6 months or so ago. Specialist Roll was in that first class of graduates. She quickly moved from the classroom to conducting experiments with our Eagle satellite that's on orbit, and developed new tactics and strategies for protecting our interests in a contested space environment. We needed a space cadre that could develop this critical training, and we need guardians like Specialist Roll who are using that knowledge to ensure our collective security in space. So I can't thank you enough, but one of the things I want you to stay standing. One of the things that I would like to announce this morning is Specialist Roll was just notified that she's been selected to sergeant. And so congratulations on your promotion. At the beginning, I listed some changes that have taken place since the last time we were here together. One of the areas I am absolutely most proud of is our work to establish new and strengthening existing international partnerships. This week, I am hosting an International Chiefs Conference focused on space with my counterparts from 23 different countries around the world. To all the international military leaders here with us today, will you please stand? Thank you. International travel, as we all know, isn't easy these days, but we are all grateful to have you here in person, and it sends a very strong message of the importance of space to your countries that you are here under this time of a pandemic. While we in the U.S. were busy establishing Space Command and the Space Force, many of our allies and partners have elevated space in their militaries as well, including the UK, France, Australia, Japan, and Germany, to name a few. We're training together. We've had more than 300 international experts participate in the Shreveport War Games. We are increasing the number of exchange and liaison officers and increasing, international slots in our professional military education institutions. We're working together to identify non-legally binding norms of behavior so that we have a common understanding of what is safe and professional behavior in the space domain, just as we have in all other warfighting domains. We're developing and operating capabilities together. Norway and Japan agreed to host our payloads, and I'd like to thank Vice Admiral Nils Stonnes and General Sunji Bert Izutsu for their partnership. We have rapidly built new Space Command and Control applications that the U.S. and international partners can use at op centers across the globe. I'd like to thank Lieutenant General Al Meisinger of Canada and Air Chief Marshal Mike Wigston of the United Kingdom for their hard work on this, which has allowed our nations to plan and execute space operations collaboratively. We recently added an 11th partner to the Wideband Global SATCOM Agreement. Admiral Karl, thanks to you and the government of Belgium for helping us increase access to communications for our allies around the world. I recently visited Luxembourg, and like the Space Force, they are small, but they punch well above their weight in space operations. Mr. Baudot, thank you for the partnership in exploring new opportunities for commercial satellite services. Australia is invested in fielding the Space Surveillance Telescope in the critical Pacific theater. Air Marshal Hupfel, Mel, I'm looking forward to working with you further to hopefully get to visit you in person once COVID allows. Although we've leveraged about $2.7 billion of partner funding and space capabilities through 40 different international agreements with 19 different nations, that's just the beginning. We'd like to see more. Now, let's let a few more of our allied space leaders speak for themselves.
Space is much more than a simple domain. It's a new dimension which is present in every activity, every day for each one of us. So I think that like any new dimension, it offers opportunities and challenges at the same time.
The space domain is changing ever faster. The commercial and scientific opportunities are literally infinite, and space is fundamental to national security and our modern way of life. Everything that makes our daily lives secure, comfortable and efficient is reliant on space.
Working with allies such as the United States is absolutely critical to Canada's efforts in the space domain. Collaborative efforts allow us to provide a unified voice in recognizing irresponsible behaviors from nefarious actors and allow us to leverage the capabilities across all of our allies in order to conduct operations and provide a measure of resiliency to operations around the world.
I think it's very, very important that we share capabilities, we put our forces together to face all the challenges.
The Japan-US relationship is more than 150 years old since the mid-19th century. As an ally, we shared a strong bond for more than 60 years. Our historic friendship also contributes to the stability of the Indo-Pacific region. Today, we must expand it to the space domain. We should accelerate the cooperation with you all to embark on a new era of the space.
The increase of international interest in the Arctic demands that Canada increase its abilities to operate and monitor our Arctic approaches and maintain our sovereignty in the Arctic. Working with the United States is a key component of that. Canada has a long-standing defense relationship with the United States, and Arctic sovereignty and security is a key component of that.
Ready and willing to do our part in promoting airspace and space domain.
Through Space Command, we will protect and promote the UK's interests in space and make a leading-edge contribution to the coalition of like-minded nations and organisations who've come together to ensure space is there for the benefit of all.
Space is hard, but it'd be way harder if we were working this alone. Our partners in industry are essential to our success as well. Today, commercial companies are leading the way in innovation, daring to think big about what is possible in space. Sometimes a Space Force problem already has a commercial solution on market. We don't need to own that hardware. We'll buy that service, like we are already doing with launch and SATCOM. Our new Commercial Services Office at Space Systems Command will be focused on finding more opportunities to do just that. Let me introduce you to one last Guardian, Major Adam Burnetta. Please stand, Adam. Adam is our lead. Adam is our lead for the Space Enterprise Consortium, which is quickly moving to efficiently prototype new capabilities. At the beginning of this month, the consortium had 578 members. 424 of these companies are non-traditional DoD vendors. Through the consortium, we've awarded 83 contracts totaling over $1 billion with record time to award. That is just the beginning, and the demand signal for the Space Enterprise Consortium continues to grow. They have a booth. I'd ask you to go visit them. Thank you, Major Burnetta, for all your work in getting this up and running and for all the work that your team is doing to solidify these partnerships. Lastly, almost none of this would have been possible without the continued partnership of our sister service, the United States Air Force. Congress told us to focus on the mission, so we only brought over operators, intelligence professionals, cyber professionals, acquisition professionals, and intelligence operators. For everything else, we rely on the Air Force. The Space Force can remain so lean because we have the strong leadership, as I said, of Secretary Kendall, and I will tell you, I'm blessed to have a strong partner and a fellow service chief, General C.Q. Brown, and the dedicated support of all airmen across the globe who work so hard to make the Space Force successful. We are truly indebted to the Air Force for all their great support. Let me wrap this up. Before I close, let me give you one final thank you to the host here at the Space Symposium for giving us once again the opportunity to gather here again, for allowing me to introduce a few of our Guardians and to talk about the partnerships that are making us stronger each and every day. We've accomplished a lot in the last 20 months, but there is still a lot of work to do. The challenges we face in space will only grow as the domain grows more important and more congested and contested each and every day. I'll leave you today with our newest recruiting video. This is a first scene, so you're the first group to see this, because in order to meet these challenges, we need the best and brightest in our ranks, because space isn't easy. And those of us in the space business have known for decades the opposite is true. You know, space is hard. It used to be all we had to worry about was astrophysics, Kepler's law, gamma rays, solar flares, rocket science, black holes, and the theory of relativity. But now we also track about 30,000 objects, orbiting at over 17,500 miles an hour. And our entire way of life depends on us to protect our satellites from attack day and night. So yeah, space is hard. Thank you all very much.